You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. One of the foremost composers on the Canadian music scene, Kelly Marie Murphy, has had her music performed around the world by outstanding soloists and ensembles over the airwaves and in iconic concert halls and venues. Friday night, under the direction of Maestro Daniel Reiskin, the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra performs her in the time of Our Disbelieving in the final concert of the Winnipeg New Music Festival. Ahead of the performance, Kelly Marie Murphy has joined me. Welcome to Winnipeg's Classic 107.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be with you.
Well, it's a real honor to have you on the program, and I'm very excited to have you back here in the city of Winnipeg.
Well, I'm crushed that the festival has gone from like 10 days to now 3. It was very sad about that, but still, I get to be there. I get to work with the musicians, and I'm excited. And this was, I think, my first festival was 1995, and over all of this time, this is like, I guess, what a convention is for other professions, but a new music festival, where we meet performers who are interested in new music, where we meet other composers. And, through the years, like, this is where I met Arvo Pärt and Louis Andriessen and Christopher Rouse and Joan Tower and all of these absolutely, giants, icons of contemporary music. And to think that it was now it was now me that was the distinguished guest composer. I not wrapping my head around it, but
Well, that's exactly where I wanted to start. I mean, yours, of course, has been and continues to be a sterling career: awards, prizes, commissions, writing for some of the nation's foremost groups and ensembles, the Vancouver and Toronto Symphonies, the Griffin Trio, the Cecilia String Quartet. But as you sort of just alluded to, it's a career which, orchestrally speaking, started here in Winnipeg at the New Music Festival. Is
yes,
that right?
yes. So the very first festival was on the heels of the CBC Young Composers Awards, which was like late in 1994.
Mm-hmm.
And so Glenn Buer, who was the composer in residence at that time, got in touch with a number of us and invited us to the festival, which was, end of January, as always. And so we came, I think, most of us came with whatever piece we had been awarded something at the CBC composers competition. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a string quartet, and got that was the first time I'd worked with Gwen. Obviously, anybody here, but it shows you how deep and how far back these connections go. But it was one of those bleacher concerts on the stage, and so the audience was everywhere. It was almost like being in a boxing ring where you're trying to address everyone and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And Bramwell was there because obviously he wasn't conducting the chamber music concert,
Right.
but so he was there as an audience member and whatnot. Um, and after the concert, he came up to me and said, I want to meet you in my office tomorrow morning. And I just thought, oh God, I've done something wrong, like being called to the principal's office. But it was to invite me to come back next January with an orchestra piece. So my first orchestra piece, first commission, I think that was, and live to air broadcast in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting beside Joan Tower, and I was shaking so much that she was holding my hand. So, and Arvo Pärt uh, came up to me after that concert, and he doesn't speak much English. I don't know if you were there for his Winnipeg speech at the end of that festival, but he put his hands over my cheeks and just said, beautiful, beautiful. And I was hoping that he was talking about the music, but it was just that level of uh, like hitting the treadmill while it's already
Right.
on in full blast. And that's all of these big moments in my career have either happened on the Winnipeg stage or come to Winnipeg in some way. So I feel like Yeah, it's just a thread that has gone through my entire career, and
And
I'm grateful.
and as a Winnipegger, I just feel like what a special opportunity for us to know that we've been a part of that in a small way, just to have that stage and to be that vehicle for you. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
as you just mentioned as well, this year's WNMF was to be the big feature, this exploration of new music, and you were to come as this distinguished guest composer with multiple nights of your works, including a new premiere as you sigh. And I hate to bring this all up, but it sort of seems like it had to change, and it sort of seems par for the course these days, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like when when Harry told me, he said, I get a text and he's like, can we, are you free for a little chat right now? And there, things are changing, and this and this has happened. And I said, I'm gonna need a day to be really, really sad, and then I'll talk to you after that. And so it was just getting through. First of all, it's not just me. It's a global pandemic, and every musician and everybody in the world is going through this. I think what really hurt the most was that I was supposed to have a world premiere of a piano and percussion duo concerto with orchestra, and young colleagues of mine. So the day after everything was canceled and we knew about it, we were supposed to have a rehearsal, and like, well, should we just get together anyway? And I said, okay, let's just get together. And I swear we just sat on the Zoom and kind of sighed and
Yeah.
looked, you know, mournful, and just tried to spin a happy, thread of thought through it. But it's absolutely crushing. I think, yeah, I was obviously sad for all of it, but it was, you learn so much when you work with musicians and conductors, and it's like the part of the process. Here I am in my studio, and this is where I think of the music, but it doesn't, without the musician's input, or what the conductor has to say and all of that, it's just, there's a piece of the information missing. And there's also, we as musicians can only do so much. It needs the audience, we need that as well. So what the pandemic has done for all of us is take that part out. It's like, and I've had the experience of having things canceled and then return to them in another season, and rehearsal, somebody studies the piece and they're like, well, what did you mean here? And I'm like, I don't remember, actually. That was a year ago. So it's funny how impactful it is to have performances and have that dialogue with the musicians. It's just, it can't be replaced by anything. So
If you're just tuning in, I'm chatting with Kelly Marie Murphy, composer whose music will be featured in the upcoming WNMF concert on Friday. And I do want to ask you a little bit more about that idea of the tangential relationships and the sort of ripples in a pond and the effect that come. Because I don't mean to sound insensitive here, but when I think of a composer, I think of very much like you described, one person alone in a room, maybe a pad of paper. This sounds oddly familiar right now. So I'm curious, like, how has this, not personally, but more professionally, how has the pandemic affected what you do on a day to day?
well, okay. So one of my favorite memes, from the beginning of the pandemic was there was one side of the screen, composer pre-pandemic, and is hunched over the piano with the computer screens and all of this stuff, and then composer during the pandemic, and it was exactly the same picture. So really, you're very right that I have been self-isolating and working by myself for my entire career. Okay, so what the pandemic did was brought other people working from home, and I'm like, wow, So next to my office, my husband's on a Zoom call doing something, and I'm like, he, for the first few months of the pandemic, I thought he was always having snacks, like always going to the kitchen, and like I know how to focus. I know how to work. I know how to be on my own. So I had to deal with other people being in my space. Um, and then I had a lot of work, like a lot of work, just, you know, over probably over an hour and a half of music to
Wow.
create. So I was writing even more so than other years. But what that whole issue of, well, I know what it says on paper that I'm
Hmm.
writing it
Hmm.
for, but when will this happen? When might this happen? All of this seemed pie in the sky, but yeah, on the whole day to day basis, you know, clocking in my pajamas and you know, carrying on, that didn't change for me. But realizing that there were other people, you know, new to working from home, um, that was surprising to me.
Yeah, like you say, that big change, of course, being the sort of the stamp at the end, the approval, the emergence of the work into the
Mm.
world, and that's been missing. And to bring it back to the Winnipeg New Music Festival, I mean, we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer for that double concerto, piano percussion, the ensemble. But there is a work of yours that premiered just a few months back by Musique de Montréal. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work in the time of our disbelieving?
I started working on this piece in December of 2019. So as soon as the academic semester comes to a close, I do not get a break. It's you know, trying to do as much writing as possible over these little breaks in the academic year. So it was over that winter break in 2019 that I started this, and we were just starting to hear about this terrible, terrible virus in China. And also, what had been happening, this was the year of the wildfires in Australia, and that were followed the very next season by floods. And
Mm-hmm.
so it ended up being like the biggest wildlife disaster in history. So I just, all of these things were coming together, and this idea that facts exist, belief is optional, and it was hard. Well, it's still hard, to be honest, to see um, factual data, um, scientific proof that things are going on, and yet people just deciding that they don't want to believe that. And it's been called the crisis of disbelieving, because it has a real consequence. And I think we're seeing that. We're seeing that with climate. We're seeing that with health, and even on a smaller scale, um, just on a personal level, if you know of something that you need to improve, but you never acknowledge that there's anything wrong with you, then I mean that's a personal crisis of disbelief. So it was just, I think there are some through lines in this piece that show kind of my own um, you know, fear and anxiety about all of this, and wanting to be the person who will believe even the difficult things. I feel like facts are there to be acknowledged. So
Mm-hmm.
and just working with strings, that was great. It's almost, I love writing for string quartet for the same reason, that it's a cleansing the palette. There's no tam tam and suspended cymbal to hide behind. I can't run for the drums, and you know, everything is very much. It's an elegant presentation, so, and everything is very open, and you can hear very clearly what you're doing. So in that way, it was great to be able to just pare everything down. And I only had, you know, probably 6 or 8 weeks to write the piece. And then, of course, all of this, oh my gosh, I have to get this done, and I'm doing this other piece, and now it's back to school, and all of this frantic writing. And the premiere, which was April 2020, did not happen. So, um, and then finally revisiting, like finally having the premiere, I can't remember when it was, it must have been November 2020 or something like that, and being here in Ottawa, watching online on my computer the performance in Montreal. So I feel like the piece was, it got out, it was cathartic for me, and I hope that the audience enjoys like all the different colors that go along with this, what we're all feeling. I think, you know, we're not alone in this, and how, and the impacts are also real, right? Like how you feel about something is how you feel. And I think artists are observers, and my way of, um, you know, making that observation about the world around me and making that connection is through music. I'm not an orator, I'm not a writer, I'm a musician. And so it's how do I translate these issues and images um, into music, and then how do I make that music pop off the page and make sense to the musicians and the audience.
Well, absolutely wonderful. Kelly Marie Murphy, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me at Classic 107 today.
It's been my pleasure, Simon.